Hey, good morning. It's Saturday morning, April 10th. Thanks again for being here this morning. We're going to continue looking at the Beatitudes and how they impact our daily life, and how I believe Jesus meant something quite different than what we think about with these Beatitudes. You see, I think the Beatitudes are often viewed as an entry into passivity, into weakness, to a non-aggressive response to life, when in reality they are just the opposite. We began with poor in spirit. Then we talked about mourning. Not typical things we think about in terms of people being warriors for God and having great courage, and yet those things require exactly that. The next beatitude is, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And again, that's sometimes pictured as a position of weakness, a position of, like I said, Christian passivity. But meekness is exactly the opposite of that. The picture that's on the thumbnail this morning is of a Percheron, a giant horse that was similar to the horses of war that would have been common in the times of the New Testament. And the reason that this horse is there, and do we have the courage to be meek? This horse is there because what is required for meekness is to do exactly what the rider wanted you to do. So these massive animals, these great horses, huge animals, would do exactly what their rider told them to do with just a slight nudge. And so a war horse was considered to be ready for war, to be ready to ride into death, when he was meek, when he would do exactly what his rider wanted him to do. That's why the meek are considered blessed, because they will do the things of God, and that's why they will inherit the earth, because they will honor God in all that they do. Moses was a man who was considered to be meek. Old Testament describes him as the meekest of all men, who was willing to follow God no matter what. Perhaps the greatest example of meekness is the witness of Jesus Christ, when faced with dealing with the punishment for my sin. He said to the Father, "Not my will, but yours." You see, that attitude, not my will, but yours, is what meekness is all about. If we're going to be parents, if we're going to be people who live in this world to represent the person of Jesus Christ, to make our way different from every other way, to be appealing to our children, we need the courage to be meek. We need the courage to go wherever the direction of God calls us to go. As I said, Jesus is quoting the Psalms, Psalm 37. And he's making this connection. If you want to be what God is about, it's not a way that's easy, but it is a way that's clear. The clarity comes from following what God wants us to be about, to denying myself and walking in the way that God wants. See, that's what meekness is. That's what humility is. That's where power is. Not that we're power hungry, but when I do what God wants me to do, there could be no more powerful act possible for a human. See, our flesh and the enemy wants us to think if you do what God wants, you're just a weak person. You're caving in. But what God wants us to do with weakness, with meekness, and Paul says, "When I'm weak, I'm strong." What God wants us to do with meekness is to have that courage. If Jesus Christ calls me through his word with the power of his Spirit to do the will of the Father, I will follow that. You see, that's meek. What are the things that you're facing this day that seem overwhelming to you? And perhaps the biblical response, returning good for evil, or saying what's true but everyone else wants to deny it. Having the courage to deny yourself and serve God rather than serving yourself. See, that's what meekness is all about. This is really the essence of what it means to be a parent who follows God. Doesn't follow the will of the culture, doesn't follow the will of your child, and certainly doesn't follow your own will, but follows the will of Christ. We need courage to be meek. That's why Jesus started off this sermon with these things which seem very passive to us, but they're not. These are the things that will literally bring the power of Christ to bear in my life and in your life. So think about meekness this day. Think about the power of God. Think about what it means to have the courage to be meek and that promise of inheriting the earth. This is for real. Thanks again for being here. Have a great day. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Don't turn on post notifications. Again, love your feedback, and have a blessed day pursuing meekness. Bye-bye.